Thank you so much for being with us. So this is going to be a fascinating discussion because, as we all know, the green energy transition is complicated because it requires such a fundamental shift in how the world distributes, produces, and consumes energy. You have to balance, obviously, rising energy demands with energy security, with economic stability, with the need for reliable energy as well, with also the fundamental truth that fossil fuel production over the long term is simply not sustainable. So what I really want this discussion to be about is collaboration. How do you get all the different stakeholders, governments, private sectors, the financial institutions to really align when it comes to incentives, to align when it comes to investing in infrastructure and the various solutions as well. So Fahad, I'm going to start with you, particularly as the representative for Aramco here. There is so much pressure, of course, on oil companies to decarbonize. And obviously, as you well know, Aramco has obviously faced some criticism that some people would say that it's simply not moving towards sustainability fast enough, and that some of its solutions when it comes to carbon capture and storage is really good in the short term when it comes to reducing emissions, but that over the long term, the game really has to be about reducing fossil fuel production overall. Obviously, the situation is complex. There really is just not one answer. How do you navigate the complexities of this discussion?
Well, luckily, since the debate around energy transition started a few years ago, I would say that we have stayed the course. Our objective in Aramco is twofold. How do we meet the increasing energy demand? If you look today, all sorts of fuel are in demand, whether it's oil, gas, renewables, or even coal. A fuel that has been expected to peak in 1987, and so far we're seeing coal continuing to grow. But the reality is there is a huge demand for energy, and that's something that we're working towards. The second is how do we clean the current energy system? And for that, you need to tackle it using multiple approaches. The first is how do we reduce the carbon intensity of oil and gas today? And I'm proud to say that Aramco has the lowest CO2 and methane intensity globally. This is something that came as a result of huge investments in technology and innovation and best practices. It's not something that started a few years ago, but it has been ingrained in the DNA of Aramco for many decades to come. We're also in other forms of energy. We're working with ACWA in expanding our renewable footprint. We're developing the biggest carbon and capture sequestration facility in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at the capacity of 9 million tons per annum. We're also getting into hydrogen, a fuel that has been talked about to a great deal, but we're yet to see the demand that was talked about a few years ago. We believe that the pace of movement in the energy transition should revolve around technology and affordability. Much of the demand is coming in the Global South. Emissions are borderless, and the Global South believe that they require affordable energy for them to grow. So this is how we're approaching the energy transition, and we believe, contrary to a lot of people think, that we're the solution to the energy transition, but not the problem for it.
You bring up some interesting points that I really want to touch on with some of the other panelists. Green hydrogen, for example, is something that you're looking at, but it is really expensive. Mohcine, I want to talk to you as the representative here from Morocco, because Morocco is really regarded as a rising star, particularly in the sort of Middle East, North Africa region when it comes to renewables. And that's partly as a necessity, because in the past, Morocco really had imported 90%, I believe, of its energy needs, and so its transition to renewables is really about energy sovereignty. Plus, you've got the EU with really high levels of demand for Morocco's renewable energy. Just given all of that, and obviously the EU has net zero targets by 2050, just walk us through what Morocco's role is in the green energy transition globally.
Well, I think, and I'm sure that Morocco will definitely play a crucial role in this energy transition, not only for Europe, but more globally. And you know why? It's because in Morocco, like in Saudi Arabia, we have a strong leadership. And when you have leadership, you have vision. And thanks to the royal vision, during the last 15 years, we've been investing a lot in a huge program of renewables. And today, we have reached 40% of our capacity in renewables. Mm-hmm. And we are targeting 50% by 2030 and maybe earlier. And as you mentioned, Europe is now in a huge demand. They have their net zero program, and after what happened with Ukraine with the gas, they are intent to buy like 20 million tons of ammonia. And with my friends, we know that 20 million tons is hundreds and hundreds of gigas. And as Morocco is less than 10 miles away from Europe, of course, we are the natural partner. Mm-hmm. But we are also partners with countries like Saudi Arabia, because our friends from ACWA Power have already done huge programs in Morocco. So yes, we will play a crucial role in this energy transition.
Okay. Abdulhameed, Fahad mentioned ACWA Power. Obviously, ACWA Power is a Saudi Arabia power company, but obviously you do business across the Middle East and Africa as well. Saudi Arabia has committed to have 50% of its power needs coming from renewable sources by 2030. I mean, that is a huge undertaking. Just explain to us what challenges are involved in that kind of undertaking, and also how do you navigate the right mix between renewable energy sources and conventional power as well?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And just to take you through the journey of Saudi Arabia, when Vision 2030 was announced back in 2016, there was a big dream, and one of the big dreams was actually to transform Saudi from 0 gigawatt of renewables to 50% of the total capacity into renewable by 2030. This is a big ambition. Just to give you a reflection for those who are not familiar with the gigawatts, at that time, the 50% renewables mean around 60 gigawatt of power capacity. That was double the capacity installed in a country like UK when it comes to the renewables. So it was a huge ambition. And at that time, the prices of solar and wind was going downward, but still not enough time to build up a capacity within less than 14 years. Fast forward, we have been blessed as ACWA Power to deliver the first projects on this program. And we continue to build remarkable capacity in the last 6 years. Today, we are proud, actually, that we are making this dream happen by having more than 20 gigawatt already of capacity between generation and under construction, and another 15 gigawatt under development. So around 35 gigawatt of what used to be a dream is already on track. Of course, just like any other KPI within the Kingdom Vision, that goes up as we are, almost exceeding the target and getting the target ahead of the plan. So now, actually, the 60 gigawatt of 50% renewable has moved up to 130 gigawatt. So now the new ambition actually is to deliver 130 megawatt of renewables by 2030.
Fahad, let me bring you back into the conversation as, again, the representative for Aramco here. Just in terms of how Aramco views the energy transition, do you see it as, a competition, perhaps, between yourself and renewable energy companies? Or what sort of partnerships can there be between Aramco and renewable energy companies?
Well, the world will need all forms of energy going forward. A lot of people think oil and gas is destined for mobility only, and electric vehicles will take that market share from oil and gas. But in reality, a lot of the materials we see today here come from oil and gas. Petrochemicals, only source of fuel or feed is oil and gas. But there is a future for oil and gas along with other fuels. We've had coal for the past 200 years, and it's still with us today, despite all the talk about emissions and transition. But the reality of the transition, it will have to happen with everyone at hand. The current and conventional forms of energy, the new forms of energy, we're also going beyond all of that. Our technology network, that's global, through 13 locations, is investing in cutting-edge technology, not only within oil and gas, but even in the automotive sector. We just invested in a venture with Geely and Renault, an oil and gas company, investing in an automobile engine car, with the hope of taking a lot of our technology into that space. In addition, through our Aramco Ventures fund, it's a $7 billion fund, the main purpose of it is to use that vehicle to disrupt Aramco. To give you an example, one of the companies we're investing in Silicon Medicine, have a platform for drug discovery. We're using their platform right now to explore new materials that can help us in direct air capture. We're not stopping there yet. We're going beyond in piloting direct air capture with companies like Siemens. We're working across the oil and gas sector and creating the oil and gas decarbonization charter, which is something we launched in COP28 in Dubai, with the hope of having everyone within our industry reduce their emissions to the level where many of the companies aspire to. This could achieve around 1 gigatons of CO2 realization. So the future will require all forms of energy. Demand continues to grow, but it's in our interest to work all collectively towards exploring and exploiting technology in the best interest of reducing the emissions of the current energy system while meeting the growing energy demand.
Thank you, Fahad. And Mohcine, there's a lot of, when you think about what Fahad was laying out there, there's a lot of challenges to any kind of approach when it comes to the green energy transition. If you think about Morocco and some of the challenges that it has faced, everything from infrastructure, reliability, storage, modernizing transmission networks. Just walk us through some of the key challenges when it comes to turning Morocco into this sort of massive green energy investment hub, and how your country has addressed those challenges.
Well, it's more about demand, and demand is growing. We've been hearing during the last 2 days a lot about generative AI, robotics, you name it, and President Trump said 2 days ago that the demand will double, and he said, drill, baby, drill. And at the same time, we have a few weeks ago another president in Europe saying, plug, baby, plug. Well, fair enough. I want to say drill or plug whenever you can. But if you want to plug, it has to be sustainable. Of course, it has to be environmentally sustainable, but economically viable and sustainable. That means you have to face some challenges. And in Morocco, we have faced 3 main challenges. The first one is the intermittency. For the renewables, you need intermittency because the wind and the power is fluctuating, so you need a good intermittency. In Morocco, we may not have the best solar irradiation, we may not have the best wind exposure, but we have the best mix that gives us 60% of base load factor, which is very important. And the rest, we fill it with the green hydrogen or a battery storage system. That was the first challenge. The other challenge is the availability of land. Even if you have wind and sun and you don't have land availability, you're not able to start huge programs like we did with ACWA in Morocco for No Wazazat. And of course, the last challenge is, you mentioned it, the storage, transportation. For transportation, we need to use these new devices, the HVDC, which is current continuous, to plug our electrons to Europe. Otherwise, we can send molecules, green molecules. So either it's green electron or green molecules, we have the ability to transport it, to store it, and to distribute it.
Abdulhameed, let me just get you to touch on one thing that he discussed there, and that is the economic viability of these projects. These projects obviously have to be bankable. As a leading private sector company, how does ACWA Power manage and navigate that balance between delivering returns to investors while at the same time focusing on long-term sustainability?
So just to give you a perspective first on what we are managing a portfolio of around $110 billion of assets under management. It's split it between 55% in Saudi and the rest is international in different 13 countries. When it comes for us to decide on the countries, I think a big part of it comes from the scalability of these projects and the visibility of the pipeline. That's why, as mentioned by His Excellency Mohcine, we have been in Morocco for the last almost 10 years, and we continue to be visible there and interested in the pipeline there, and similarly in other locations as well. it is always a risk and return perspective when it comes to the expectation of different technologies from a return perspective. So it's very obvious when you build up a CCGT plant, which is a gas-fired power plant, you will get a better return compared to a simple solar PV or a wind project, given the risk associated with the execution and the operation of these assets. We as ACWA Power always committed to deliver to our investors a portfolio that can always give a mid-teen IRR on a portfolio basis. So we'll continue to create value for our investors, even for the renewable portfolio that we are investing in. You have asked an interesting question. As the world moves into energy and transitioning energy to renewables, how we can sustain such a returns for the investors. And this is a big part of a challenge that a lot of investors and developers in the world are facing. For us, the key was actually scalability. So we don't go anymore for small projects. So we do multiple gigawatts of projects. We do big scale, 3 to 4 gigawatt each projects of renewable. We end up negotiating very well with the supply chain, EPC contractors, financials, institution partners to make sure that we can deliver that expected return at a utility scale size. Ultimately, this is something that we are blessed with because we have the scale in Saudi and other countries that we are operating in. But yes, sometimes that scalability is missed in countries like in Africa or some countries also in Central Asia that we're working in a smaller scale projects.
We only have a minute and a half left, but I wanted to quickly talk about green hydrogen. I mean, you mentioned obviously that green hydrogen is really expensive. Mohcine, I think that I'm going to ask you this question because one of the things I'm interested in is how Morocco is balancing this idea of exporting green hydrogen to Europe, for example, with also its own domestic energy needs. That is an important balance and a balance that obviously Morocco has to navigate quite well.
You know, now we're working hard on transforming the maximum of our renewables. You have the green energy, which represents 70% of the capex when you do a green hydrogen project. And the rest is electrolyzers, and then you can produce ammonia. But as Morocco is the first producer of phosphate, and with ammonia, will be the first producer of green fertilizer to feed the world. That's one of the first cluster we want to create. But not only, we can create other cluster with green steel, green aluminum, green glass, you name it, so that create an industrial cluster like in any energy transition. There are economic powerhouse that has been created in Europe and the US, for instance. So Morocco is the future with its partners, of course.
Can I add?
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
I think it's important that today and yesterday there was a lot of talks about the green hydrogen and it's expensive. Definitely any technology when it starts, it goes at a level and ultimately with the economy of scale it goes down. I can give you a recent examples. Like we started our first solar PV project at almost 6 cents, which was already dropped to 50% before that. Today, we're delivering project at 1.2 to 1.4 cents per kilowatt hour, and this is almost 80% drop on the solar PV project technology in less than a decade. Similarly, in the CSP, 60% drop in the price, and the water desal also have witnessed around 68% drop. So definitely, you have to start from somewhere, and this is where we are developing now 2 projects, one in Neom and one in Uzbekistan, with a quarter of a ton per year capacity of green hydrogen, and we'll continue to deliver more. Ultimately, we will be delivering the market for the green hydrogen, and there is potential with time. So we have to be patient, and ultimately the market will come.
And very, very quickly, Fahad, do you want to add something about green hydrogen? Obviously, you and I were talking about how expensive it is and how you utilize green hydrogen to scale.
Well, at the moment, we're into hydrogen as well. We're in blue hydrogen, which comes off gas with carbon capture. We have been in the market for some time, looking for off-takers. For these projects to go ahead, it requires off-takers, but the demand hasn't been materializing as fast, going back to the importance of affordability and all of that. In hard-to-abate sectors, with the right policies, we could be seeing some hydrogen penetration. But the global energy system is much bigger than one fuel to meet that demand. As I said, for us to tackle the energy transition issue, we have to focus on sustainability, affordability, and the reliability of the energy system. Emissions should be at the heart of all of that focus. We shouldn't be focusing on a fuel over the other, but rather emissions. And we should be mindful that most of the demand going forward will be coming from the global south. So we can design and plan whatever policies we want. If we can't get the global south to come along with us, we will not succeed in our ambition.
Right, thank you three so much. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists? Thank you.